In this project, you will begin by selecting an idle you would like to do your project on, a cityscape that you would like to use, and some other background graphics that you would like to use to enhance your project. When you're done, you'll have something that looks similar to what I have here. This is Marilyn Monroe. This is an iconic photograph of her, the city of New York, some magnolias, and some other special effects that I've applied. In my idol project, I am going to be using Marilyn Monroe as my idol. You can use anybody you want, but I'm going to show you how I search for the best image for her. First, go to Tools and click on the Tools button. Change the size to large because we want a really nice high quality image of her. I'm going to come over to my type and set it to photo. I only want to see photographic images of her. And you can choose color or black and white if you want. I set it to any color. And now I'll scroll down. I want to find the image I'm after. And there it is. This is the one I want. I'm going to click on it. It brings up these different photos of Marilyn Monroe inside Google with this famous pose of hers. I'm actually going to use this one. So I have the larger version. I'm going to right click it, save the image as. Now I want to navigate to my Documents folder. While in my Documents folder, I'm going to create a idle folder for this. I'm going to right click right here and select New and Folder. And I'm going to rename it Idle and press Enter. Now I'll double click to open it up. And I'm going to rename this Marilyn Monroe. And click Save. And it downloads and saves that file for me inside my Documents folder. This is an example of the poster I'll be creating. You can see over here all the many layers that have been created and the effects that I've set up, all in the result of this wonderful Marilyn Monroe poster. So let's go ahead and create our new file. So select File and New. I want you to rename it Idle. I want you to change it to Web. Leave the settings, all the default settings here. Background's white, web most common, and click OK. So we've created the file. Now I want to save it right away in our idle folder. So select File and Save As. Navigate in your Documents folder and go find your idle folder. Let's see where we have it here. There it is. Double click and open it up. We're going to save it as a Photoshop type file. We're going to call it idle and click Save and OK. So now we're ready to begin the rest of the project. I want to place my file that I found, a photographic image of Marilyn Monroe. So I'll select File, Place Embedded, navigate to my Documents folder, find my idle folder, and there it is. I'm going to click it to select it and then place it. Now I can grab it anywhere in the center, in the middle part somewhere, and reposition it. I want it over here a little bit to the left, mostly. Right about there is fine. If I need to resize it, remember to hold down your Shift key when you resize and then grab it to resize it only in the corners. Do not resize using these anchors. Only corner anchors should be used to resize, holding down the Shift key so we keep the image proportional. Select the check button and we've placed our file. In this step, I want to add a new layer, so I'm going to select the new layer icon right there. I want to drag it underneath my Marilyn Monroe layer, and I want to fill it with white. So I'm going to make sure that my foreground color is set to white. I can do it here or up here, but make sure it's set to white, this foreground color. Get my paint bucket tool, it's underneath the gradient tool, and click. And as you can see, this layer has filled with white. And I'm going to move it down underneath again, or move this above. There we go. So I've got the white layer underneath and my image layer above. I want to duplicate this image layer. So I'm going to drag it down on the new layer icon and release, and that will make a copy of it. I'm going to turn the original off, come up to my copy, double click, and I'm going to rename it Image 2. So I just double click so I can do that. Now with this active, I'm going to add the layer mask. Here's the layer mask by clicking on that. I'm going to come over and use my different tools. I can use the paintbrush to erase if I want, by swapping this to black on top and erase the background. Or if I erase too much, I can swap it back to white and add it back. Okay. I can use my eraser to erase. This works a little bit in reverse. I'm going to set this up a little bit bigger. If I have it set to white with the eraser, it erases. If I erase too much, I swap it to black and put it back. So it depends on whether you're using the paintbrush or the eraser, which one of these will erase and which one will put the color back or the image back. You can also use your magic wand up here to get rid of different background elements or the quick select, or you could use your selection tools using the lasso or the marquees. At any rate, you want to make sure you're on the mask and you're erasing this background until it's completely gone, and all that's left is your image of your person, and the background is completely deleted. So let's see what that looks like here after I've erased everything. As you can see, I've got most of this background cleaned up now. I'm going to use my zoom tool right here. I'm going to zoom in by dragging, and there's a little bit more areas that I might want to clean up. I'll go ahead and get my eraser, much smaller eraser I need, because I'm doing some real tiny editing here. Very small. And I can come through and clean up the last of my background. So again, keep doing all of this until you have it completely cleaned up the way that you want. All unwanted background pieces have been deleted. Just move around in here when you're zoomed up, zoomed in, and delete it until you're happy with the result. Now I'm going to leave a little bit of a black edge on mine because this is white and I want it to show up in a later step almost as a dark outline of my character or of my image. I want to duplicate this layer here, so I'm going to click and make sure it's my active layer, and I'm going to drag it down on the new layer icon right here and release. So I drag it right there and it duplicates it. Now I have two. I'm going to turn this one off underneath by clicking the eye. I'm going to come over to the one above. Let me collapse that for a moment. And I'm going to double click this right here and rename it Mask. So I've renamed this by double clicking it. I want to apply this mask, so I'm going to select the thumbnail and right click. I'm right clicking it with my mouse, and I'm going to apply the layer mask. And now it is actually part of the image. This background is truly deleted. We'll move on to the next step now. The next step is to make sure this is a black and white image. Now in my case it's already black and white, but you may have a color image that you're working with. So I need you to convert it though to a black and white image. So we're going to make sure we're on the mask layer, select image, adjustments, and just go ahead and click this black and white. Now you'll see it pops up. I can adjust the reds and the yellows, and it will slightly change the appearance of this image. If you're starting with a color image, then it's definitely going to adjust it even more, and then click. Once you've got that, you'll click OK. Next, I want to posterize it, so I'll select Image, Adjustments again, and these are destructive edits, meaning they're actually editing the layer itself, and click Posterize. I want to set this to right about 6, I think, and depending on your photographic image, you may need to do something a little different. I'm going to choose 6 though, and click OK. So I've converted it to black and white, and then I posterized the image. This next step, I want to apply a halftone pattern to this layer. First, I'm going to change my foreground and background color to the colors I want to use. So I'm going to click on this first chip on top, which is my foreground color. I don't want to come in here into sort of these sort of deep sort of purplish colors. You can use whatever you want. I'm going to try that. Click OK. And this bottom, the background color, I want to make sure it's set to white. So make sure you set it to white. Those two colors are what I want for my halftone. Now I've got it chosen. I'm going to go to Filter and the Filter Gallery. And I'm going to, hold on a minute, I want to try that one more time. I'm going to go to Filter and this Filter Gallery. And underneath Sketch, I'm going to find this halftone pattern. Now I can move this over so you can see what I'm doing as I go here. So I'm select this halftone pattern, and I can play around with the sizing of this halftone. There it is at 2 points. Maybe I don't want the contrast quite so high. If I go too high, it's too white. So you got to play around with this until you're happy with it. I actually like it better at a 1. So I'll go ahead and click OK. Keep in mind your image, you might have to try different settings. There we go. And now I've got this halftone pattern applied. If I get the zoom tool and zoom in, you can see I've got this sort of dot pattern based on the colors I chose here. I want to create a new layer, so I'm going to come to the bottom of my layers icon, layers panel, and click this new layer icon. I want to rename it Lines, so I'll double click it and call it Lines. Press Enter. Make sure it's active, and now I want to go ahead and create the lines I'll be using. I'm going to use the rectangular marquee to do it though. So I'll select the rectangular marquee. I'm going to stick with this pink color I have, and I'm just going to come over here and draw a rectangular marquee that goes across. Just right about there is good. Now I want to fill it with color, so I'm going to select this paint bucket right there, and I'm going to click and fill. So now I've got a rectangular marquee going across filled with this pink. Now I want to move and copy it, so I'm going to select the move and copy option right up here, this pointer, four-sided pointer. I'm holding down my Alt key, and I'm going to click on top and drag this down. Notice it's moving and copying it at the same time. Release, hold down my Alt key again, and drag it down. So I'm just eyeballing this for the project. Release, hold down my Alt key, drag it down, and release, drag, release, drag. And you can do this as many times as you want. I'm going to take it right about here, I think. That ought to do. And now I've got the lines I wanted to create. I want to add a gradient to these lines. I'm going to make sure I'm on the layer where the lines are at, hold down the Control key on my keyboard in the bottom left-hand corner, and click on the thumbnail, which causes all these lines to be selected. Now I want to find my gradient tool. There it is. If you don't see it, hold down right about here. You'll see a paint bucket maybe, but make sure you've chosen the gradient tool. Now I want to choose the colors I want to use on the gradient down here. So I'm going to select the foreground color. I want to actually come up here and choose in this sort of pink range. So I'm going to pull this up a bit. I'm going to find a pink right about there. I like it. You can use whatever colors you want. The background color, I could choose something, but I actually want to just leave it as white. So I'll select white and click OK. Now I'm in the gradient tool up here. I'm going to choose the first gradient. Make sure it's set to linear. Make sure the mode is set to normal. The opacity is set to 100%. Leave it at 100 and then drag your mouse left to right and it will create this gradient. And I can drag it a few more times until I have it where I want it. I want actually a little pinker. There we go. I like the way that looks right there. So now I'm doing pretty good. The next thing I want to do is erase some of these edges a little bit. So I'm going to get my eraser tool right here. Here's the eraser. I want to come up here and pick a nice soft brush, kind of small brush. There we go. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to set this not 100%, maybe down a little bit in here somewhere. And I want to come in and sort of rough up these edges. So I'm just sort of painting over this a little bit, erasing really. I want it to look a little less perfect when I go to create this. So I'm just sort of randomly erasing some parts of these lines. There we go. You can play with that until you're happy with what you've got. So I've erased a little bit here. There we go. So I've just distressed it. All right. Now I want to duplicate this entire thing. So I'm going to select this layer, drag it down here onto the new layer icon and release. And now I have two of them. So we're going to be manipulating these here next. In this next step, I want to manipulate these lines and rotate them a bit. I'll go ahead and deselect here. I'm going to select and deselect. Now I'm going to come to the first layer right here. Make sure it's chosen. Select Edit. Come down to Free Transform. You can also just choose Control T if you want. And what I want to do is take this, let me move this over a bit so you can see. I'm going to take this and it becomes a curved double-side arrow and I'm going to rotate it into a new position. So just kind of reposition that as you wish. When I'm happy with it, select the check. Now the one underneath, I'm going to select it. Same thing, Edit, Free Transform. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to rotate it. And you can just sort of eyeball this, figure out what you want to do with it and reposition it. And now I've got this rotation going. Select the check to complete these two sections. Now that you have these rotated, you might want to come back to your eraser, play around with these opacity settings. I think I'm going to lower it quite a bit and come back through and do a little bit more erasing in here. And give this more of a distressed look. So again, we don't want it to look too perfect. We're actually working on this one right now. So we'll go ahead and do that a little bit more. Now go get this layer, same thing, come through and just distress it a little bit so it doesn't look too perfect. I'm just roughly erasing out sections of these lines. There you go. In this step, I'm going to create a new layer by hitting the new layer icon. There it is. Make sure you're on it. I'm going to find the elliptical marquee right there. Make sure I'm in the new elliptical marquee option. I'm not adding or subtracting or intersecting. This is set to 20 pixels. This is set to normal right here. Okay. And I want to come down here and hold down my shift key and just draw an elliptical marquee. Now I want to fill it with color. So I'm going to select my paint bucket. It might be under your gradient tool if you don't see it. Select the paint bucket. Choose a foreground color I want to use. I think I'm going to come down right about there. Click OK. I'm going to set the opacity up here to 70%, right around 70. Right there is good. I want to make sure I've got everything set up, and then I'm going to click. And I'm going to fill this with a light color. Now I want to do this again, so I'm going to deselect, create another new layer. Here it is. I'm going to get the elliptical marquee again. I'm going to draw a new ellipse. Hold down my shift key and drag. There it is. I'm going to get the paint bucket. I'm going to select a new color for this ellipse, down in this pinks, I think. There we go. I am going to make sure opacity is set to 70. I'm in the paint bucket. I'm going to click and fill it. So now I've got two different circles you can see over here. One more time. You can do this as many times as you want. I'm going to deselect that. So select and deselect. Go get the elliptical marquee. Hold down your shift key and draw another ellipse. Get my paint bucket. Make sure it's set to 70%. Change out this color. I think I want to go with maybe a darker blue here and click OK. Paint bucket's chosen and fill it. So keep doing this until you've filled it up with a group of circles that you like, and you can do as many as you want, as many different sizes and colors for your design. Now I have all of these circle layers and I want to merge them all together. So I'm going to select this guy here. I'm going to go to layer and I'm going to tell it to merge down. And then I'm going to merge these guys down, layer and merge down. So I'm combining these layers, layer and merge down. Okay, I'm almost there. I can also just choose the ones I want to merge. So hold that one, hold down my shift key and choose that and that. I've got all the rest selected. Go to layer and merge layers. So the layers that were chosen are all merged into one. Now that I have that done, I'm going to come up to the layer mode. I'm going to go to normal and I'm going to change that to color burn. Let's see if we can find that. There it is, color burn. Now I tried that. I'm not really happy with the results, so I'm going to try something different. Let's try color dodge. Not so much happy there. So as you can see, you can try different ones until you find an effect that you like. Oh, I'm kind of liking that hard light, but you can choose any of these modes until you're happy with one. I really like the darken. So I'm going to leave it with darken and I'm going to set my opacity down. I'm going to bring it down until I'm happy with it. Right about, I think, right in there is good. Right about there. So you've merged them, you've changed the mode, and you've changed your opacity, and you'll have some effect similar to that. Now I want to come through and distress some of these areas on these layers here a little bit more. So I'm going to come get my paintbrush tool here, select the brush tool. I'm going to come up here and I want to choose a brush that's kind of scruffy looking. So this one might do. Any of these that aren't solid brushes look a little scruffy. I think I'll grab that one right there. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And you just have to play with this. I'm going to set this mode to normal. I don't want it too high. You can play around with these figures too, the opacity and the flow. And I want to go to my eraser. Make sure you're in the eraser. I got to do that again because I thought I was and I wasn't. So I'll go grab it again. I've got the opacity. I'm going to set this flow down a little bit. And I have my eraser chosen. I'm going to set the size up some. I'm going to come through here. And I'm just going to click in here and sort of erase some of these settings. Hopefully you can see that little bit of white popping up. And it's showing the color underneath. So I'm just sort of roughing that up a little bit. I need to place the cityscape that I've downloaded inside my file and resize it and clean it up a bit. I'll select File, Place Embedded, navigate to my project folder. There's my file, NYC. Click it and select Place. Now it's going to place this file inside my So we're working inside this layers panel. You've noticed you've got your two lines, the New York City skyscape, the mask with the girl, and then our circles. I'm going to make sure I'm on the New York City skyscape. Select that, go to Image, Adjustments, and let's set it to black and white first. And you can make some adjustments here to increase the intensity of your colors if you want. You can notice it does change the gray and black and white. So I've got that. Now I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, and Threshold. So I'm going to set it to strictly black and white. I can slide this to the right or to the left until I'm happy with the detail that I can see using nothing but black and white. There we go. Click OK. And then I want to set this mode to multiply right here. I'm going to click multiply. So now you can kind of see through it to the lines underneath. In this next step, I need to add the flower background I chose. I'm going to select File and Place Embedded again. And I've got one called Flowers. I'll select it here and click Place. There's my flowers. I'm going to hold down my Shift key to keep it proportional. And I'm going to resize this so that it fills my document. You can go outside the boundaries a little bit to get what you're after. That'll work. Hit my check mark to complete the placement. And I want to apply some different settings. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to try a few different ones. There's multiply, different modes I might want to use, overlay. So come and play with these until you find one that you feel looks best with your particular design. So you notice each one of these gives me a slightly different appearance to my document. I'm going to move this up one. Don't like that, so I'll bring it back down. I'm going to go ahead and for my particular one, I'm going to stick with this linear burn for now. And you can try whichever one you want. I've used different ones in the tutorial, but find one that you like. All you have to do again is select it and then click on the options until you find one that you think works good for your particular design. There you go. Each one, notice, gives a slightly different appearance. Again, I'm going to come back up and I think I'm going to stay with multiply for mine. In this next step, I want to add text. I'm selecting the type here, horizontal type tool. Going to choose a font style that I like by clicking on the drop-down menu. You can see the samples of how the text looks over here. So just find one that you particularly like. I'm going to actually choose this one. Let's see, I think I really like, in this case, I'm just going to choose this cursive one. I'm going to go ahead and leave it at regular, 72 point. Okay, I'm going to leave the text black. I'm going to click one time. I'm going to type Marilyn. Spell that right. Monroe. Right now I've got it placed. It's not quite what I want, so I can go ahead and highlight that and try out some different fonts. Notice as I roll my mouse over, I'll get a different look. I think I'm going to go with this one here instead. Got it. Now I'm going to hit my move or selection tool. I'm going to get my edit and my free transform, and that puts a bounding box around Marilyn Monroe, and I'm going to rotate it because I kind of want it to go in the same direction as my lines here. Pull it up. I'm going to increase the size of it. I'm just resizing this as I desire. Okay. Go ahead and check it up here to finish that transition. Now once I'm in here, I want to go to the FX. So I'm going to click FX down here and blending options. And that's going to bring up my blending options window. And I want to play around with this text here. So I want to come in and add a drop shadow to it. So I've clicked drop shadow. That brings up the drop shadow window. I'm going to set the opacity up a little bit. Hopefully you can see that drop shadow appearing down there. You can give it a little more distance, a little bit more spread, and maybe a tiny bit more size. I'm also going to go to my color overlay. I'm going to choose a different color. Click on this This brings up the color picker. I'm actually going to come out here and click out here and pick a color that's out here in my file. Just try a few different ones out. I like that rosy color there. So notice it changed the color of my text. Okay. I think I'll also add an outer glow to my file. So I'll click outer glow, set this up a bit. I can choose the spread a little bit more, maybe the size a little bit more. Click OK when I'm happy. You can add whatever you want. I'm going to stop at these three. And now I've got the word Marilyn Monroe on my design. Now you can come in here and play around with these settings. You might want to try moving some things above or below. You might want to come into some of your different layers and try maybe a different effect on your layer if you're not happy with the results. There's the overlay. So try out different ones. There's multiply. So you can see I can try all of that out and move them around until you're happy. You've got what it is you're looking for and you feel happy with the results of your file. Any layer can be taken. I'm going to come back into blending options. I'm going to put a stroke on Marilyn out here. I'm going to set the size of the stroke up a little bit, but I'm going to take the opacity way down on it. So you can see I'm adding something. If I don't like it, take it back off. You can work on different settings here. I think I'll grab an outer glow. I like that a little bit better. I'm going to bring it down a little. I don't want it quite so dramatic. Maybe set the spread up a little. Set the size up a little. And there she is. So play around with the settings until you have a final design that makes you happy. Here are some other examples of completed projects using the Marilyn Monroe iconic figure and the background that you are familiar with. This is the final poster design 1. This is a second poster design, again using the basic components that I had before with the background in Marilyn Monroe and the city of New York, but with some tweaking of graphics in terms of colorization and effects. In this example, I actually did a poster for soccer for Carly Lloyd, just to give you an idea of all of the techniques that we use to create the Marilyn Monroe posters can easily be incorporated into a icon poster for anybody that you admire, whether it's a sports star, a band, or artist, or anyone that you would like to do a poster for.